So, what's with the giant spaceship? Firefly was a Fox science fiction show which was cancelled after 14 episodes and was essentially a western set in space. It was originally focused at the idea of what happened to the Confederates after the war had been lost on their side, and it kind of takes place in the aftermath after the Civil War, but in space. Um, it seems like a bit of a shaky premise, and actually, in terms of a show and a show solidarity, it wasn't that great. But in terms of the entertainment value, it was huge. It's a very funny, very engaging, and very well written show. It was written by the same guy who did Buffy the Vampire Slayer and latterly Dollhouse. So why did I start making the model? At the time I was working for postgraduate taught admissions in Loughborough, and I had my evenings pretty much to myself because all my friends had moved away, and I was looking to move back into a house in Norwich, lastminute.com, because my previous house had fallen through, and it was all not going very well, to be honest. The guy who I was moving in with was a compulsive thief, and the problem on top of that was that he was so uncleanly that when I went to get my deposit back, the dirt he had left in the house had actually caused physical damage, and so he had lost all of his deposit to cleaning and repair. So we're not talking about a great individual. And I was talking to a friend of mine, um, and she had essentially offered to put me up in this house in the centre of Norwich, and I was kind of very happy with that idea. But the proviso was that I made this model of this ship because she was also a big fan of the show. So I set to work on it, and it made up for a really good evening activity because I felt productive, and it was far better than just going out every night, seeing who I could find, and just getting sloshed. So I ended up really enjoying it, and so similar to the helmet, I found a Pepakura file of the ship and printed it all out and then started making it. I started with the engines, which I wish I hadn't now, because they're actually exactly the same size and shape as a Jambo juice container. All of that time that I spent perfecting the outside of the engine was a waste of time in the end because I could have just stuck this used juice container on the outside. Um, I got a little way into the project and then I decided that I wanted to do the inside as well, which meant that I had to do a bit of dollhouse work essentially. I needed to learn how to make very tiny chairs, so I bought a book of matches and then cut all of the heads off and then used the matches themselves. Um, the match heads I set fire to in the garden, um, and they kind of burnt a hole in the grass, which didn't impress my parents too much. I also decided that I wanted lights on it as well, so I got this string of fairy lights and put the batteries in the cargo hold and then weaved them through the inside and outside of the ship itself. So when you turn it on, you've got lighting on the inside and you can actually see inside the ship. When I brought it back, originally it stayed at this dirty friend of mine's house, but I quickly found that the bottom end of the back of the ship had been chewed away. I can't for the life of me tell you what by. My money actually goes on mice, if I had to pick of anything. They'd also chewed through some of the architectural cord which I used to make the piping. I remember, I was living well out in the sticks in Norwich, and I packaged it all up in a box, and I pretty much had to walk from one side of Norwich to the other holding it, and I was so paranoid that it was going to rain. Of course, I'd stuck it in a bin bag, but every now and then you get that cheeky little hole, and it could have ruined the entire project. At the time, I was seeing an American girl who I ran into on a field between my house and UEA, and she, of course, wanted to know what I was doing with this huge box of bits. And I didn't want to admit to being such a massive nerd as to make this ship. At the time, I was kind of relying on what army credentials I had to to impress her, and even then, that wasn't really holding up. So I had to lie my teeth off to get to get out of the conversation. I told her it was plumbing parts, and then I had to make up some cock and bull story about how the ball cock in the toilet had broken and how I needed various other parts and how she didn't really want to know. And I think I elaborated on it too much, and I kind of dropped myself in it more than I pulled myself out. I looked terribly impressed with myself in all of these pictures, and I really shouldn't have been. It was a very good way of spending time because I watch a hell of a lot of movies, but I get quite fidgety, so having something to paint or something to make or do, I think kind of stopped everyone else in the house going mad, because otherwise you get the J Crisp commentary going on over the top, and it's very hard to turn that one off. I ended up with it because when my friends moved out of their house, they couldn't take it back with them because it's too big and it's too fragile. It's 3 feet long and it's about 1.5 feet wide. So you can imagine carrying that on London Underground, it wouldn't last 5 minutes. I mean, it barely even lasts 5 minutes in a house by itself. And yeah, overall it adds to this intensely nerdy set of credentials that I've got. It certainly makes for a very good centerpiece in the living room when you come in. The other thing that this led to was my friend Seth suggesting that I should make the rifle from Firefly as well. I'll roll the clip because it's absolutely classic.
Do I have your attention?
Kind of going to extremes here, ain't we?
There's times I think you don't take me seriously. I think that ought to change.
Do you think it's likely to?
You got something you don't deserve.
And it's brought me a galaxy of fun, I'm here to tell you.
6 men came to kill me one time. And the best of them carried this. It's a Callahan full-bore autolock. Customized trigger, double cartridge thorough gauge. It is my very favorite gun.
You offering me a trade?
A trade? Hell, it's theft. This is the best damn gun made by man. It has extreme sentimental value. It's miles more worthy than what you got.
What I got? She has a name.
So does this. I call it Vera.
So, as if to condemn the fact that even when I've got a full-time job, I've still got too much time on my hands, I ended up making this rifle from Firefly as well, from a clapped out MP5 fun project to make, a lot of woodwork. But it was a bit of a pain in the backside because originally I was trying to make it work, and then I realised that I didn't really care about that, and I just kind of fancied doing it ornamentally. And then when we were about halfway through, we got offered money for it. So I finished it up and I sold it.